My Lords, I start by drawing your attention to my register of interests. I speak in today's debate as an atheist, a disabled person, and someone who's watched both her parents die. I oppose this bill, and it's because I'm a disabled person. I'd like to explain the 3 different ways that I'm treated, which gives me a unique perspective and comparison. The first is as a Paralympian. I represented my country with great pride, and I'm treated very well because of it. The second is as a parliamentarian, where people like or don't like me based on my opinion. That is very simple. But the third is far more complicated, and that is as a disabled person. And it's where I experience most and significant discrimination. My Lords, we don't live in an equal society. And this chamber has spent considerable time looking at coercive control. But why do we accept that as something in domestic abuse legislation, but assume in this legislation it would never, ever happen? My Lords, we have to look at the wider context of life for many disabled people in this country. My Lords, I can't get on many forms of public transport without the approval of a non-disabled person. Airlines ask me to fill in forms that ask whether my impairment is offensive to others, and based on that form, they decide whether I'm allowed to fly or not. In recent times, we're challenging airlines that are telling me that I'm not allowed to fly on my own because I'm not a responsible adult. We have an unemployment gap. Care packages are being cut. During the pandemic, do not attempt resuscitation orders were put on hundreds that we know about disabled people with no underlying health conditions. And the government has a strategy that recognises this inequality. People have asked me why disabled people are not protesting outside in greater numbers. Well, number one, it's hard to get to London on public transport. But the other is very simple, and that is because of the pandemic. Those who are noting little opposition outside simply don't understand the risks that some disabled people have to take every single day of their lives just in order to live. There are many organisations around disability, but there are 12 that are run by disabled people, and they do not support this legislation. They're concerned about the potential backlash of it, and organisations run by disabled people really struggle to get any funding whatsoever. My Lords, as a disabled person, I've been told people like me should not be allowed to have children. When people list the things that they couldn't bear to live with, such as incontinence, it does upset me. Because what does that say about me? I'm incontinent. Does that mean my life has less value? I certainly don't feel any loss of dignity when I catheterise myself or have to use suppositories. This is something that can be very easily managed. My Lords, also, many people have said to me, if my life was like yours, I would kill myself. My Lords, I have a huge amount of privilege in my life. But if people think this, it becomes very easy for them to conflate disability and a 6-month diagnosis and decide that we have no right to live. My Lord, serious consideration and sense check must be given to conscious and unconscious bias before this bill can proceed. It's not a simple bill. Cambridge University Press have shown research on the impact on doctors on legalising assisted dying. And in 2019, the Royal College of Physicians noted that 24.6% of doctors were willing to do it, but only 5% of palliative care physicians. And if we look at other jurisdictions, Belgium and Netherlands, it's simply not right to say that where the legislation exists, there's good palliative care. There's been no growth in palliative care in those 2 countries since 2012. And in Canada, only 15% of people can access publicly funded palliative care at home. We've heard a lot today that there's great public support for this bill, around 80%, but that drops considerably when details of the bill are better understood. 57% of people don't know what assisted dying means, and 10% of those who believe the law should change believe it actually means better hospice care. My Lords, I believe it's fundamentally wrong to have assisted dying on the NHS when there is no right to palliative care. We must improve that. My Lords, this is not a modest bill, and I do not support it. Yeah.